Good morning, friends. Welcome to the Volpe Creates show for Monday, July 13th. I hope you're doing well. I just realized I don't have my little light up my jig on, so I'm going to turn that on. Give me some backlight. Hopefully you all are doing well at the start of this this week. I want to talk about something. This has been the point of conversation for many a game and a movie as of late. And I just beat Claire Obscure over the weekend. I believe I beat it on Friday. And then I've been playing it, kind of trying to get the platinum on it. First of all, it is an amazing game. I might do a video about that game by itself. I absolutely loved it. I think it is one of my, if not my favorite game of all time. Chrono Trigger is always my go-to favorite game of all time, and that game has such a soft spot in my heart. But man, Claire Obscure is giving it a run for its money. Not that it's a competition. I'm allowed to love my children, equally. But, gun to my head, my answer was always Chrono Trigger. And gun to my head now, I have to stop it, Pumps. I have to think about it. Pumpkins in my lap. Because Claire Obscure is just so good. Now, there might be some recency bias, obviously, because I just beat the game. But anyway, that's not what we're going to talk about. What I want to talk about is this constant refrain we hear from developers and publishers and everyone about how the budgets of video games and movies and everything is just ballooning. And in some respects, that is true. Those are true words. A lot of these large companies employ a lot of people. Those people have to get paid. There's a lot of infrastructure, benefits are paid out, all these kind of things. So it's not a one-to-one comparison generally when we talk about this. However, what we are starting to really see is that the games that are really sticking with people, that are winning awards, winning Game of the Years, selling lots of copies, getting big box office numbers, they are smaller projects made by passionate people who are really aligned on a vision for what this project is. And sometimes that comes with a reduced scope, making sure it's a very, very tight scope. Although, to be honest, with Claire Obscure, that is a big game. It's a large game, and I think I want to say it's only $50. Maybe let me see. I should have had this ready at the get-go. But it's got a ton of content. If you just want to blow through the story, I don't know, it's maybe, 25, 30 hours, maybe 20 to 30 hours, we'll say, if you just want to blow through the main story and you do absolutely nothing else. But even then is probably not true because you have to do some of the stuff, or it's just you wouldn't even really know if you're just following the waypoints for the main story. But my point is there's a ton of content in there. I'm trying to look up the price here. I might not be able to look it up on PlayStation because I've already purchased it. The deluxe edition is $60. So I assume the non-deluxe edition is probably $50. So, it's a friggin' steal. It is a steal that you can buy that game for $50 or $60. And it is better than almost every other game that has come out this year. Certainly, won all these Game of Awards last year. So it's better than almost every game that came out last year. It is a phenomenal game. It is got so much content. It's so beautifully designed, and the combat mechanics are great. The environmental design is amazing. It's just there's something creative around every quarter of that game. And it was made by a relatively small team in France. And looks like I'm going to cut myself there. And so it's pretty amazing that you can see this or that you can experience these games, whereas you're looking at, some of these other AAA games are costing, an insane amount of money or taking forever. GTA 6 is going to... Pumpkin, you are going to just knock everything over, I think. Particularly my computer. GTA 6 is rumored to be somewhere between $1 billion to $2 billion if you include marketing. Okay, I'm sure it'll make its money back. I hope that it'll be an amazing game. I'm looking forward, despite all the controversy, I'm looking forward to seeing it just as a moment in video game history. I've got some gripes with Rockstar that I'm happy to discuss in another video, but the point here is that these games are small scope, or at least smaller scope, smaller budget, and are doing extremely well. So I'm going to quote a couple numbers here just for folks as I kind of get situated. Okay, so here's just some movies for a second, because this year is actually in Hollywood has seen quite a change in how theatrical releases are, or I guess, theatrical release movies. So we had earlier this year, we had Iron Lung, which was self-funded by Markiplier, a YouTuber created. Somewhere $3 to $5 million is the budget I was able to find, which in Hollywood terms is really small. I mean, $3 to $5 million is not nothing. I couldn't afford a $5 million movie or a $3 million movie. Markiplier obviously is successful in his YouTube career, and I'm sure he's got some money, so he was able to self-fund it and everything. So, that's great. But $3 to $5 million, it pulled in at the box office $51.2 million as far as I was able to see here. Okay, so great, successful movie, earned, let's just say 10x its return, which if you are an investor is widely considered to be really good. Like investors typically, you assume you're going to get like 1 to 3x on an investment. That's, I guess stable, if you want to call it that. Most of the time you want to get like 3 to 5x your return. So that gives you money to cover some of your additional costs, fund the next projects. If you're only earning like 1 or 2 times what you spent on a project, considering the time it took to make that project, then you don't really have a lot of money to invest in the next thing. And so you kind of just end up where you started, which is not necessarily a bad thing because you created a product out of it, and who knows what they call the long tail on that project might be. What is this? Sorry, I'll just pick this up real fast. Do I have like a cut? I got like a little bruise on my nose or something. Exciting times on the Volpe Creates show here. All right, so then we've got Backrooms. So Backrooms came out 3 months ago. It had about a $10 million budget, so that's pretty big for a independent YouTuber film. That was Kane Parsons. The fact that he was able to get a $10 million budget with some pretty well-known actors for that movie is actually pretty astounding, and that they entrusted him to make that movie. It has here a global box office of $362.3 million. That is a heck of a return. You're looking at a 35x return roughly on that. 10 million to 362. That's great. I watched Backrooms. I enjoyed it. I thought it was an interesting movie. It didn't blow me away, but I definitely enjoyed it, and I thought there was a lot of really cool ideas and the way that the story sort of presented itself and whatnot. Obviously the backroom sort of environment design, set design was really cool, and so yeah, I enjoyed it. Watched it with my friend. Then we've got Obsession. I saw Obsession about a month and a half ago. And hi, sweetie, I see you. What is that? And Obsession blew me away. I love that movie. I saw it twice in theaters. I think it's phenomenal. I've been watching people sort of talk about it and do reactions to it and just sort of thinking about what this movie was and how it was put together. I thought it was one of the best shot and composed movies I've seen in a long time. You forget, I grew up in the 80s and 90s when it seemed like directors really cared about creating, a vision and a voice, whereas now everything's been marvelized with CGI and it all looks flat and, boring and whatever. This movie just looked amazing. It was composed amazingly. a $750,000 budget, under $1 million budget for this movie, $750,000. As of now, and it is still in theaters, it has broken $427 million in the box office. It was just released for streaming like last week, maybe, or 2 weeks ago. And I think maybe last week, or maybe it's this week, the Blu-ray discs are coming out. So now you can get the physical discs. So this 427 million is just box office. This doesn't count streaming, online purchases, and the Blu-ray discs, physical media. That is insane. So you're looking at a 450x more than that on its budget. It's unbelievable what that movie was able to do. And these were all movies created by YouTubers for a small, in some cases, a very small budget, but even the 10 and $3 to $5 million, when you're looking at it for a movie, that's a relatively small budget. $5 million. And I have not seen Iron Lung. It was on my list to see. I wasn't able to see it because that was one of the weeks my friend had to go to the hospital, so we weren't able to see a movie. Now, let's jump to video games for a second. I'm not going to bore you. I'm just going to do Clair Obscur as an example. And I have another one that I'll pull out that's a relatively new one. So Clair Obscur says it had about a $10 million budget. Again, in video game world, for a AAA level game, that is very small. Most AAA games, like at a minimum, are going to be $50 million. Most of them are in the like $100 to maybe $200 million range. If you're really looking at like your Naughty Dogs and Ubisoft games and all that kind of stuff. $10 million budget. I do not have a revenue number. I wasn't able to find one, but it says that they have sold over 8 million copies. Now, when they say copies sold, usually that's sold to, like, it'll count free codes and stuff. So you can't just times 8 million times $50. And, if there's maybe some sales or whatever, it has been a year since it was out. But still, 8 million units, that's pretty good. AAA games that sell 8 million units feel pretty good about it. Your Call of Duties will sell 8 to 12 million, and that's considered one of the best-selling games every year in the world. So, 8 million copies is astounding for this small French team of about 30 people that created a AAA experience of a game that is phenomenal. It's a little rough around the edges in some part. You can tell that, this is their first maybe AAA game that they were creating themselves. I know a lot of the folks were from Ubisoft in France, and so they had AAA experience, but as a team, this was their first game kind of at this level doing this thing. And so that's a lot to do, but man, it's amazing that you turn 10 million into whatever, let's just for fun. Pumpkin, I love you, sweetie, but you are killing me. Let's just say that they sold that is $400 million, not counting publisher cuts and disc cuts and all of that. If those were sold at the exact 8 million at $50 a piece, if they were just sold, simple napkin math, right? But there's another game that is super new called Mecha Chameleon. I've not played it. I've looked at it. I've seen people play it. But Mecha Chameleon, which is, I don't have a unit sold here, but it said that they have made about $75 to $90 million. I'm sorry. It looks like they've gotten over 15 million copies. So over 15 million copies. So that's about $75 to $90 million on a small game made by two people. Now, granted, it's important. Mecha Chameleon is a viral sensation, and you can never depend on virality to hit those numbers. So, like, we got to put that in the conversation, right? But that's almost beside the point, because if you were a publisher looking to develop a game like Mecha Chameleon and you're running your budgets, you're getting all your spreadsheets ready, like, you would never assume you're going to sell 15 million copies. Like an indie game made by a studio of two people, you would be lucky to sell 50,000. and I always tell teams when I do mentorships and stuff with them that like 50,000 units is going to be like, you had a great day. You did great. And so it's one of those things where 15 million is just in another world, right? And I don't think that they are going to have to worry about money again, ever, for a project, which is, I mean, good for them, right? A lot of people are having fun with that game. But my point is that we have entered into a time in which you can, as a studio and your publishing partners and investors, you can create a very, very tight scope and budget and do it very well if you have a strong vision and a team that understands that vision and supports that vision. Then you can coalesce all of those items into a small scope of a 1 to 2 year development project, get it out there, and make some money on it. That's very competitive. It's very difficult. I'm not saying that game development is easy by any stretch. Everyone's struggling. It's very, very challenging. I get that. But the thing is, the larger studios are getting pummeled by these smaller experiences because, in my opinion, the larger studios aren't making anything worth experiencing as a whole. So let me just, for fun, I try to go to a movie a week with my friend. And so I'm going to look up let's just go through the movies that I've played. I know this is a video game podcast, but let's just say that this is the movies that I have looked at since January. Give me 1 second here. All right. Where does the year start? Okay, January 21st. First movie we saw, Anaconda. It was fine. I don't think it was a million. Send Help. I enjoyed. I thought it was pretty interesting. So there's that. Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie is another perfect example of what I'm talking about. A YouTube group who made comedy videos, made this theatrical movie. I thought that movie was great. It actually got me started on watching the show, which I'd never seen before. But Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, particularly a show about friendship and like caring about your friends. While I was sitting there watching it with my friend who has cancer, and it's something we do together to watch these movies, it just struck all the right chords for me. And I don't know what it made. I think it did pretty well. I think it's actually still in some theaters around the country, and it did well. Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, I thought was pretty interesting. How to Make a Killing was okay. Crime 101 was okay. Scream 7 was lame. Project Hail Mary I thought was great, but that was like a big budget movie. Ready or Not 2 I enjoyed. They Will Kill You I enjoyed. Super Mario Galaxy movie I thought was fine. Exit 8, another small movie that was based on a video game. I really enjoyed that. Normal was okay. Over Your Dead Body was okay. Deep Water was whatever. Mortal Kombat 2 was fine, but like not worth multiple watches. But I thought it was good. Backrooms, Disclosure Day, I thought was okay. I mean, I don't know what the budget for that was. Master of the Universe was fine. I enjoyed it. But again, it had that sort of Marvel feeling to it. Back-to-back Obsessions, and then I saw Jackass, which I enjoyed, and then I just saw the Minions movie with my niece, which I enjoyed. So overall, I enjoyed the movies this year, I guess. So that was good to know that I've liked most of them. But there have definitely been years, and that's just the movies I saw, right? So I'm making strategic decisions on what I want to see. These big Hollywood movies, by and large, just are not doing it for a lot of people. They are not providing an experience that is sort of genuine and meaningful and is saying something, which is really interesting. Like, this shouldn't be a surprise. We see this happen all the time in media, and it happens in faster cycles in media that's sort of easier to create. Television, movies, video games are harder to create, so it takes a little bit of time for the sort of this timeline to work itself out. But if you look at the 60s and 70s, there were some really interesting movies that were like really weird and really heady. Now, obviously, the movies in the 60s and 70s, there was also some just like total garbage for sure. And there was a lot of stuff that was like compositionally, they were still figuring out how to construct movies in that way. But there were some really cool movies with really good ideas. The 80s and 90s, I think, is when it really took off, because filmmaking began to become very, like, the foundations of filmmaking were figured out. And a lot of creators, directors, writers, set designers, they had this foundation that they could build off from that Hollywood provided for them. So they were able to make these really cool, intriguing movies, and they weren't afraid to like try weird stuff. I mean, The Matrix was a weird movie, and that exploded. I'm trying to think, like, there's so many amazing movies from the 80s and 90s. I could spend all day. I mean, just look at like 1984. That movie has got like more amazing movies that came out in that one year than like practically any other year. But my point is that, you know, the budgets, although they were Hollywood sized, they weren't like gargantuan. But then we started to see these like summer blockbusters, right? Like the Independence Days, the Titanics, those kind of things. And the budgets for those were just enormous. And I like Titanic. I think Titanic is actually a very well constructed, it's a good movie. I've seen it, I don't even know how many times, and I like it. And Independence Day, I like Independence Day. But the lessons that these studios have picked up from those movies is that, you know, we should create these really big CGI explodey fest movies because that's what people want to see. They want to sit down in their seats and just be wowed and blown away by the spectacle. But the thing I think they forget is, like, as silly as Independence Day is, there's actually like, there's a lot of heart in there, and like the way it's put together and constructed, even though there's a lot of comedy and sort of some goofiness and silliness, it's constructed in a pretty smart way. How it's all, and you know, it's a relatively long movie, I guess, but it feels like it's paced very well. The Marvel movies are kind of taking that idea and just doing the lowest common denominator work on it, and then throwing it in these giant CGI battles where, I don't know about you, but like I just get bored watching them. It's just a bunch of like little people running around in CGI world doing stuff. It's not that exciting. Whereas you look at something like, you know, Backrooms, Iron Lung, or Obsession. I mean, particularly Obsession is such a small, grounded movie. It's really a movie about like two people, and it's way more visceral and interesting to watch, like visually, than anything Marvel's produced in a long time. And speaking of, I mean, the Grogu movie, Mandalorian and Groglet, just came out, and all of these movies, well, except Iron Lung, because that was a small one, but Obsession and Backrooms have generated more revenue than The Mandalorian and the Grogster. So, you know, I think ultimately at the end of the day, whatever creative project you're working on, people are looking for like a genuine sense of authenticity, some interesting ideas, some humanity in there. And if you can give them something that they can take away from, then you've won. Like, they will stick with it. And that's the whole point of art. Art is to convey and create these experiences that are, in some instances, just as real to the people that experience them. And that they have something that they can take away from. When you're standing there in a museum and you're looking at a painting, you're not just like looking at the painting. You're thinking about what's going on in the scene, how it was constructed, what the artist's intentions were, what was going on in the world when the artist was painting it, how was the artist responding to the other things that had happened in that art field before it. You know, it's not just about walking in, watching a movie, and then walking out and being like, all right, I spent my $10 and I was entertained for 2 hours. There is a phrase I've always liked, which is knowledge without action is entertainment. And there's nothing wrong with entertainment, right? But if you want to get to wisdom, if you want to get to a place where art has a sort of deepening effect on you as a person, that's what I think a lot of people want to see. Now, I watched Jackass, the movie that came out, Best and Last or whatever, and I really enjoyed that. There's an artistry there for sure about what those guys are like willing to do and how they construct these things. I definitely think there's an artistry there and a genuineness there. But by and large, it was just a fun movie, right? I didn't walk away with the same sense of like, I have not been thinking about Jackass, whatever is bigger, laster, and whatever, best and last. I've not been thinking about that movie constantly like I have been with Obsession or Claire Obscure since I watched that movie and beat that game. Those have left an impact on me. I mean, Chrono Trigger, I keep saying is my favorite game of all time. I think about that game all the time. I whistle the songs. I think about the characters. I think about the moments, the story beats, and like what that game sort of was trying to do and trying to tell you. And so, all in all, I guess this is my long-winded episode of just saying, creators out there working with a good vision and an authentic like idea, there's a place for you. And in art, there will always be a place for that kind of creativity. Don't get brought down by what people are saying about Hollywood movies, video games, music, whatever. Humans always have and always will want those creative experiences because they connect us to each other and they connect us to parts of ourselves that we maybe didn't know we had, or maybe we've forgotten as we've gotten older. So take that for whatever it's worth. I think this is a good place to end the video. I really appreciate you watching. Remember, I do this every morning at 9:30 Eastern time on twitch.tv/volpecreates. I also post these videos onto my YouTube channel, so feel free to check those out. Besides that, I think we are good. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow, y'all.